Hello and welcome to This Week in Property. I'm your host, Richard Swan, and in today's show, we have Mr. Shane Brady, who is the COO of a company, a tech that you're going to hear about today called SmartWorkPlus. And this is going to be of real particular interest to the poor trodden upon facility managers out there pulling their hair out, struggling to properly manage all the facilities and all the headaches and the cost cutting and everything you can imagine. I'll tell you, these guys and girls from Smart Work Plus have got some fantastic tech. But first of all, Shane, welcome and thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks very much for having me, Richard. I'm chuffed to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have a chat. I've been watching all the videos and the demos about what this system can do, and it's an incredible power. But before we get to Smart Work Plus, what about Shane? What about the man himself, the COO? What is your story? How has your journey taken you in the past up to Smart Work Plus that we then talk about?
I'm probably the least glamorous component, but sure, I'll tell you anyway. I originally did chemical engineering. The problem with that degree was that it was a chemical engineering degree, so I hated it within about 2 days. Ended up, I think it was about the second year I left that and got one of the first jobs I had was as a commercial analyst in a big facilities management company.
Ah,
And really from there, I've been having quite stern, serious conversations about how much it's going to cost to clean and maintain buildings for my career. So that's really the dramatic story behind me. I guess the interesting part was when I bumped into SmartWork Plus. A bid director, Adrian Warner, that I used to work with a few years ago, had retired. That was the main idea, but he was having to be standing at the side of a rugby pitch, I believe, with Aidan Donnelly, our CEO, and the two of them. Aidan's background is more telecoms and technology, and I guess the
ah,
two of them decided to put technology and facilities management together, and they came up with the idea that essentially the world of having a very fixed idea towards managing buildings was or needed to change with the technology that was available at the time. And I guess it ended up being a pretty astute idea because this was pre-COVID. So they managed to go
ah.
out and get the investment for the idea, and then they brought me on. And I guess we maybe I don't know whether it was astute or just lucky, but essentially we got into the world of looking at how to dynamically manage buildings just before the pandemic came in. And as much as hybrid working has been fantastic for, I mean, I'm sitting cozily at home right now, has been great for most of us. I think for facilities management, it's been a bit of a headache, as per within the industry, but it's just a bit of a significant one. So yeah, that's essentially where I came in. I was coming up to 4 years ago now,
Wow.
and so it's been great. It's been really exciting to be part of something that was most of us just sitting around on a table, kind of throwing ideas around of what we could do to actually building the software that's out in buildings now, and
Mhm.
making a difference to contracts I used to work on five or 6 years ago, are now being dynamically changed with this kind of technology. So it's strange to see it come into reality over the last couple of years. It's been brilliant, So
Yeah.
that's the most exciting bit of my career is definitely the last few years. I'll say that.
Try to put that degree right into the past.
Yeah,
Brilliant stuff.
absolutely.
And it is incredible tech. I mean, let's kind of clue some of the listeners and the viewers in on this one. What we're talking about here is bringing that tech side you spoke about, these amazing little sensors that we'll chat about that can be placed throughout all of these properties, these facilities, and then a software element to it as well, of course, which is really important. There's no point just having the hardware, but software that can show the most in-depth reports. I mean, it's incredible some of the demo videos that you can see on the site. And then, of course, the last part of the puzzle, well, why are we doing all that? Just to show some tech? No, it's to allow those people, those managers, property managers, the landlord, owners, whatever it is, the power, the data to then make choices, to then, cut costs, to then be most efficient, most eco-friendly, whatever it is. Is that a not bad summary, high level of what you're
Probably
trying to
one of the
do?
best I've seen for somebody given a job. It
Yes.
seems like you're doing well, okay, but we really need more of that.
Oh, fantastic. I should pitch. That's a pitch to.
Yeah,
But
brilliant.
no, on a,
Yes,
on a serious note, the viewers, the listeners, whenever it's safe to do so, after this interview and you've listened to Shane talking, do that, click on the links that we've got for the show, go onto the website because the guys and girls there, they've put up some fantastic little demo videos and they can actually show you, what do these reports look like? It's amazing stuff. But let's go hardware first then. What's the
sure.
deal there, Shane? Because we're talking about, there's quite a few different sensors that can be used
Yeah.
and we don't need, am I right in thinking we don't need that normal headache of having to hardwire them into the building? Is that correct?
No, we try to stay away from wiring in and touching the fabric of the building, not only just the fabric of the building, but also the networks that are currently in the building as well.
Mm.
Basically, from our side of things, selfishly, it slows things down quite a lot if we have to deal with with potentially damaging the fabric or having to talk with IT can take about 2 or 3 years to get things going most of the time. So we have our own 4G network that gets clicked into a building, and then LoRaWAN is what you call this particular kind of sensor network that we use. And basically, there's a thing called the LoRaWAN Alliance that allows a whole range of sensors to come in and feed through to the same network. So as much as we can really do anything from, like I say, with the majority of what we do is environment sensors.
Mhm.
But we can do right up to, if people are having a problem with Legionella, we've had sensors for that, car parking, really any of those kinds of sensors that are needed, we can click into this system. But the majority, I would say that we end up using the kind of bread and butter sensor is an environment sensor that takes in occupancy, heat, light, and humidity.
Yeah.
That really covers quite a lot of what you need for hybrid or dynamic cleaning, dynamic heating. That is all covered by the same one sensor. So it keeps capital expenditure really low, which that was one of the first things we really acknowledged within facilities management is that it's not really the industry where there's a lot of money being thrown around all the time at
Yeah.
new ideas. So we needed to make sure that it pays for itself very quickly every time that we get some kind of outlay of capital.
Hmm.
And if we can do a lot of different benefits off the back of one sensor, that's where we've tried to focus on. So that's the overall network hardware
Yeah.
side of things. But I
Uh-huh.
guess the software is where we really make a difference and try to make people's lives a little bit easier. We're trying to make the hardware feel non-existent, that you don't need
Yeah.
to think about it,
Yeah. That's right. I mean, you see some of the photographs and stuff. It's actually quite attractive. Little boxes just nicely tucked away. Some on the walls. You do have some that are desk sensors as well. Is that right? So you can track, what desks have, availability, capacity, etc. Yeah.
That's exactly it. There's multiple ways to do that as well. There's a couple of different sensors. We're starting to see more and more that previously what you would have done was have a little motion sensor that was basically pointed at the ground. And obviously,
Mm.
whenever your legs come in there, they can tell, okay, there's a person nearby.
Mhm.
But what we found in the last year or two is that there's GDPR compliant AI sensors.
Right.
Which are really changing the way that hardware is becoming affordable. And also the accuracy is a lot higher. So we're working more and more with these AI-based sensors. And essentially what they do is they essentially have either a heat sensor, kind of like if you can imagine, do you ever watch Predator? Where there's
Oh,
kind of heated blobs of people. It works a little bit like that in that's what it sees.
yeah.
But that image is there's essentially a little computer within the sensor itself, and all the processing is done within the sensor, and all it can send out is just these LoRa messages, which are essentially just texts, very low data rate texts. So essentially,
Mm.
all it says is somebody's at the desk or not, or there's 100 people. If there's people counting, 50 people came in the last 10 minutes, 25 people left. That has helped us a lot because obviously we haven't went really near a lot of this you might know from CCTV. If you're a facility manager, CCTV technology has been able to do this for a while,
Mm.
but we haven't really went near it because of the GDPR compliance issues that come
Yeah,
along with that.
of
Whereas these
course.
sensors are perfect because even if you wanted to try and find out information about people, private people, you couldn't. It's not capable of doing that. So it's been really interesting over the last year to see these sensors come online. That
Yeah.
really helps with the death sensing, people counting. People are interested in that more and more. There's no better way to work out how much a building's being used than to find out how many people have went in and out. So
Yeah.
big part of what we're doing at the moment anyway.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So I can get these sensors in. Some of them might be placed on my wall and stuff. Some of them with the desk, we spoke about that. We're capturing so many things with the movement and the heat and the light and the energy and the humidity. It's incredible what it's doing. I don't need to hardwire them in either. And then what we're talking, length of years for the batteries.
Length of years for the batteries are actually somewhere around 7 to 10. I mean, we haven't even been
Brilliant.
going in a particular into any of the contracts that we're in. They barely register as having used up any of their batteries after 2 or 3 years. So
Magic.
it's interesting that that's how far it's come along. I guess when you think about it, like I said about these sensors sending out such small bits of data,
Yeah.
it's not like your phone where there's so much going on with that. It's just a tiny amount of data being sent out every few minutes, and it's basically doesn't use up much battery power at all. So we're seeing three years of some of the ones that we have, and they maybe have dropped their battery by 5 or 10%. It does get a bit faster the closer it gets to the end of the battery's life, but
Sure.
it's most of the other issues. Like you'll have more issues with wiring things into an IT network over 7 to 10 years than things like batteries. It's
Yeah.
not really something to have to worry about too much, which has been great.
Yeah, that's tremendous. And tell me the actual installation of this. Is this where you've got a crack team to help me out? Are you going to have a team that'll be able to say, listen, that's going to be the best place for this floor, or let's put this
Yeah.
sensor in here? How does that process work when you're onboarding a client?
So one of the things that we do is specifically try to keep a lot of it from start to finish ourselves, so that you don't have to worry about anything other than the insights that come out at the end.
Hmm.
What we tend to do is it's a bit like when you might buy some machinery for cleaning a building or keeping a building secure. Somebody comes out and gives you a kind of idea of what would be the best way to go about. We tend to find that a very small package to start off with is the best thing for most buildings. So
Hmm.
we tend to put in one people counter and 20 environment sensors, keeps the capital expenditure low. And
Hmm.
then we can start to actually talk about the data that comes out of that after a few months. And that's where it's usually the clients that tell us what they want to see more on top of that. They build projects. They say, oh, well, we want to monitor the offices more, or we want to know, oh, are the meeting rooms being used? Or, is it
Hmm.
sometimes they'll have two different kinds of offices. Somebody's really put their heart and soul into this new casual kind of office environment. And then there's the old kind of staid way. They want to work out, is it working? Is it not? They come
Hmm.
up with these projects, and we put in this kind of sensor kind of environment to start off with that gets them a bit of data, gets the conversations going. But when it comes to installation from our side of things, it's hilariously easy when it comes to
Brilliant.
actually we just show up on site. We put in what essentially looks like a Wi-Fi router somewhere in the building,
Yeah.
and then walk around and just kind of stick sensors to a wall and then leave. So that's
Brilliant.
from the client side of things. It looks like our job isn't very difficult, but I promise it is more on the software.
It's all about where to place them. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
that's it.
That's where
That's
the value comes in. That's for sure. And tell me that tech. I mean, it's incredible what it does, what it captures. How long did that take the company? To put together and then test it and then revise it and so on and so forth.
Well, we're still doing it in a way, but yeah, I guess 2017 was when the guys got together on the side of that rugby pitch, and
Right.
I came on board in 2020.
Right.
At that time, we were using something similar to like we were on the way to what we were using. We weren't using LoRaWAN. We
Hmm.
were using another kind of sensor technology, more like Wi-Fi, which doesn't really work great over very large installs. There's a whole pile of boring reasons for that that we had to work out firsthand,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But basically, we started doing LoRaWAN based technology about 2.5, 3 years ago, about two and a
Right.
half years ago now.
Right.
And from then, the actual software has been more where we've been developing the sensors, the hardware side of things. Like I said, some things come up new onto the market, like the AI people counters and the AI desk sensors, which really make that a very viable product for facilities managers, which before I think it was a bit too expensive. We
Yeah.
didn't really get a lot of traction with that because again, it's that capital expenditure piece. Whereas with these AI-based sensors, they're really quite good bang for buck.
Right.
The software side of things, that's where we're constantly developing. One of the major things that when we started, we were very focused on kind of the cleaning side of facilities management. And
Yeah.
over time, we started using the same data to work out just how many savings or how much savings could be made in the heating, the ESG side of net zero has become such a prominent piece in most companies in the last
Yeah.
few years that realistically we have a very easy win of low hanging fruit for a lot of these buildings is that
Yeah.
realistically the same issues with dynamic or with hybrid working is that you shouldn't be cleaning buildings that are rooms that weren't used, but you also shouldn't be heating them. And we
Yeah.
have all that data before us that we're able to let them know and their building management system know, oh, well, maybe instead of worrying too much about like what we can do on a green side of things to do with marketing or whatever, maybe just turn off the heating when nobody's in the room. It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
Reduces costs. Nobody's complaining about that, and it looks really good when it comes around to. I think there's a thing by the IFRS, and this is my old analyst accountancy side of things coming in, but S1 and S2 is coming in the next couple of years, and I think it'll be something that people know pretty regularly within business in the next couple of years for large corporations that
Mm.
you need to start backing up your claims about reducing carbon, and this is going to be one of those really easy wins that you're able to
Mm.
say installed a bit of technology, it didn't cost a lot, and it made a lot of savings, and we're also able to say we prevented a lot of waste to do
Yeah.
with essentially heating rooms that nobody was in. So that's software wise over the last year. That's where we've seen a lot of interest.
Mm.
And space management side of things as well. We're in a lot of universities that are fighting constantly over the fact that they have to build and build and build when they know the buildings they already have aren't
Mm-hmm.
being used to 100% kind of availability that they could be doing.
Yeah.
And with sensors, you're able to work that out pretty quickly. It doesn't have to be a debate. You can just, everybody can sit around factual data and just say, some of these meeting rooms have been used for, we're in places that over a 6 month period might have got 1 or 2 days worth of use. And I
Mm.
guess it's not really known just how much square meter each is not being utilized properly.
Yeah.
So you have these buildings with all this underutilized space, and yet there's construction going on outside for the next building, or this, hundreds of millions of pounds being set aside to build more campuses or more office blocks, and that's part of the big part of the saving for us as well.
Yeah, definitely. The power of data is just incredible, and the way that you guys have used the software to actually make valuable. It's not just raw data. No, let's actually use this properly. I think the thing I was most impressed by is the way that you overlap things, because as you say, a sensor might show you, yeah, listen, this is where these rooms and this floor and this meeting room was used or was not used. But then here's another bit of data. Here's our janitorial stuff. Let's put that in because we don't need to really focus the teams on cleaning, that wing of the building, for example, because no one's been in there. Whereas this one, there's been a lot of footfall here, so let's get the team in there to maximise their efficiency. And the things with the heat, as you said as well, I love the way you overlap that, and you could see, well, this is a total waste of time. Why is that whole area at this temperature at times when no one's in? This is so simple. But it
Yeah,
sounds so simple, but you need to know it first. You need the data first to make the simple
that's it.
decisions, don't you?
Be surprised, and a lot of the time, it's not because people are falling asleep at the wheel. A lot of the time, it's the building management system that you have in most buildings is just not built for this idea.
Yeah,
It's really the building management system is very good at being able to tell you, right, everybody works 9 to 5, 5 days a week. So what time do you want to turn the heating on, and what time do you want to turn it off?
yeah,
The idea of occupancy and where people are using the building just
mhm,
isn't really available.
yeah,
Most of the time, we're actually getting in on the basics that can be fixed pretty quickly.
yeah,
We're going into a lot of places that people just don't realize that the heating's on all weekend, or
yeah,
they might have, yes, their boilers off, but the HVAC system where somebody's able to manually come in and turn on the AC in the room. So it's, oh, and you're like that one day in 2017, they came in, it was a bit cold, and they switched on the heating manually in the room. and it's just been going ever since. And
Yeah.
there's no alert coming to anybody to let them know that something on the manual system has been done. And there's something to be found like that on a large scale in every building
Oh,
we've been in so far. It's
yeah.
just there's some buildings are really well managed, but there's no beating the fact that the technology just isn't really built for this case yet.
Yeah.
That's kind of the gap that we fill. So it's been great getting to work with people, and those analysis skills that I had at the start. I've been able to start using those recently again because it's been great. I like having conversations with the people we're working with. One of the big
Mm.
things that we tend to stay clear. I guess a lot of IoT companies that prop tech that we fall within, they're trying to sell the hardware.
Yeah.
Whereas we've never been the hardware is a means to an end. It's we want to get talking about what we can fix in buildings. We want to try and put the minimum amount of hardware that we can and cost outlay to get as much benefit as we can from day one.
Yeah.
And that's what I end up doing. We end up putting a small base of sensors in and just start having conversations about, look, the software itself will come up and tell you, we think you've wasted this amount of heating over the weekend, or we think you could better place your janitorial time here, there, wherever.
Yeah.
And we have those conversations. It's been great. It's been great to meet with people and to see them starting to, like I said, coming from a few years ago where it's a few people in a room chatting about what could be, to all of a sudden we're now in large office buildings, universities all across the UK and Ireland, and we're having real world changes.
Yeah.
That's I get to go home and think, yeah, you know what, it's a little bit more interesting than maybe where I was a few years ago and I was not to say anything wrong with all you analysts out in
No,
facilities.
no, no, no.
I'm sure you know how I feel, but it's been really interesting. It's great to see that it's growing more and more, which has been really great. To see the uptake that a lot of kind of forward-thinking facilities management companies have about it, or even just the buildings themselves. It isn't always facilities management companies that we talk to. There's a lot of people who just have that under their remit,
Yeah.
and you end up talking to a lot of people who are really knowledgeable, and you learn quite a lot, which has been great.
Yes, tremendous. It must be a great variation, different buildings and different clients, and then different changes in the software. Fantastic. And it's amazing how many areas it's touching, because companies and owners are obviously saving money in ways they never even thought of. You're saving the planet and doing all sorts of eco-friendly stuff. And then for the actual end users as well, the building is much cleaner, much nicer, much more comfortable. Everything's set the way it should be to make it worthwhile. It's almost as if there's no losers involved. It's fantastic,
Yeah, I mean, it's even for the facilities management companies. What they're really struggling with is trying to get enough people in at the moment. That's
Yeah,
a kind of different position than it was maybe a few years ago. That just with the employment kind of sector that's happening at the moment is that they've got a large need, but not the same kind of uptake for people being able to keep people employed or keeping them interested. And I think this is been a great answer for that. Is that
yeah.
well, maybe there's a number of vacancies that you need to replace, and you're struggling to find those people, or there's constant churn.
Mm,
And what you're able to do is start thinking, well, maybe we could do this instead of in our usual old fixed schedule way that we have to fill in these hours. You could maybe rethink and say, well, do we need to go and clean all those rooms the same way that we always did?
yeah.
Is there maybe a way that there isn't the same need with a lot of the hybrid buildings? It was already there beforehand. We already knew before the pandemic that even in a normal 9 to 5 office, not every room was used the same way. We used to
Yeah.
sit down with floor plans and be able to tell you exactly how much it needed cleaned for the next 20 years. And it just wasn't necessarily true. It was close. But anybody on the ground, and that was the best, or that is the best part about the ops side of things and the experts that are on the ground, is that they always knew how to be dynamic in those environments. This
Mm,
just helps them a bit. It gives them that information into their hands to know a bit more. They can't be everywhere at once. They can't know everything about the building when they're
that's
away at
true.
home. They're sleeping as much as sometimes it makes you think that they don't sleep. This is the kind of bit that is from every angle, it's been great to it's really felt for me that we're just helping. There are people that I used to work with in the ops side of things. There's people that I used to work with on the commercial side of things, and it's all pressure points in facilities management. And this is one of the first things that feels a little bit like here we've got an answer,
Yeah,
instead of just find out, how to trim another couple of percentage points over the amount of budget that we have. It's just
yeah.
and just find a way. This is the first time that we've got something of an answer for let's do things a bit with a bit of software and technology that's making a big difference.
Yeah.
So really great anyway.
Yeah, yeah, good on you. While we're chatting about this, I'm actually going to just share the wee screen here just to show folks what on earth are you
Yeah,
two talking about, because it's a cracking wee page about the reports and stuff. I realise most of the folks they listen to the podcast. You might be driving just now. Don't worry, you can see all this stuff once you stop driving. But just to give folks an example, if they are watching the video version, there's a whole heating chart, temperature charts. I mean, the detail on some of these screens is just unbelievable. It's amazing. And you guys, you've managed to not just show just a general heat map, but you go to the nitty gritty of hour by hour, don't you?
yeah. We found that people needed that amount of information because if you just say, "Oh, your building was 20 degrees today, average," most
Yeah,
people will sit and think, "Oh, that's great, oh, very good, yeah, well done us." But it's just, well, should maybe 20 degrees during the day,
yeah.
but maybe a bit colder, especially right now in Ireland and GB, a little bit colder in the
Very
evening.
true.
We're finding that, and not only that, 20 degrees is all good, but one of the reports that we have is you can overlay occupancy. So you can find out,
Yes.
well, it might have been 20 degrees, but it should only really have been 20 degrees when somebody was in the office. So if you're finding that it's just this big red bar across the street or across the screen that says 20 degrees, but no one was in there, there's room
Yes.
for improvement in that too.
That's
One of
so
the ones that
true.
you're looking at now is that each of these red boxes is a text message to
Right.
the janitorial team that are on during the day. So if you think about it, again, this timetable idea, if you think about the way that we would, and still do in a lot of places,
Hmm.
to go about cleaning, say, bathrooms, you'll have somebody go around and some of the buildings we're in are massive, and you're just going around every single bathroom, you're checking, you're writing on the back of the door on a piece of paper to say it was here, all good. And then you go on to the next one, and by the time you finish up all of that, it's time to start right back to the start again.
That's
And what
right.
that tends to look like in a lot of the contracts that I would have been in, were in would have been maybe 3 or 4 times a day at least that you would go around and sign this piece of paper.
Yeah.
Yes, for some of the busier bathrooms, you'll find like it's in that report at the moment that you can see some of them actually need to be checked more than that. Some of the
That's
busy
right.
ones need 4 or 5 times, but a lot of them, as you'll see in the actual software itself, most of the bathrooms actually fall within no, there's actually no needed clean most of the time. So you're just people are
Exactly.
going around checking bathrooms that haven't been used at all,
Yeah.
and it just feels like it was low hanging fruit. The same way with the heating side of things, it feels like one of those pieces to say, well, why hasn't anybody done this before? But it's just the
Yeah.
technology wasn't there. It
Yeah.
wasn't. It was very expensive, which was a main thing. But it was also hard to install and also hard to get the software to put that into a way that wasn't. Yes, people have had sensors for a long time and have had a building management system, but there's nothing that's been handed over to the facilities management industry that's a nice, concise report to let you know exactly where to put your staff or what rooms are causing the issues with heating and nobody being in it. There's nothing like it. It's mostly just this big data dump that just builds and builds and builds over time.
Yeah.
And who is sitting around going like, oh, you know what? I'm not busy this week. I'm just gonna jump into a bit of data analysis of this giant, years long size of random sensors across the building. It just never happens. So we try to make the whole software we built with facilities managers and people who are looking after buildings. And it's all about trying to get something that's nice and easy for them to just click on. Maybe they can go in for 2 or 3 minutes in a day and just jump on. First thing that comes onto them is in the screen is some of the most useful information for them to, okay, well, I'll take that on board, move on to the rest of, they're busy people.
Yeah.
So it's been great to kind of do that piece. We've completely redeveloped the portal as well. So I'm excited about that coming out in the next year with kind of
Ah.
prettified it a little, so it's been great. We've had some great developers join us in the last year. And so
Excellent.
we've moved to an even better kind of, I guess one of the main things that I want to make sure is that any facility managers who jump onto that website, they just are hit straight away with insights and not too much
Mm,
data. They just want to
yeah.
see building. We have a thing called the building health score that we built, which is essentially what I said before, which is counting those hours where a room has been heated above whatever they want to pick, 20 degrees, 23 degrees, something that you're not particularly happy with.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the times we'll say, right, put in, say, anytime the room's above 23 degrees and no one's there. No, I don't think anybody would argue that they want to make sure that the rooms are above 23 degrees and no one's in them. And it just comes in, takes in that knowledge, and then gives you a bit of a score about how your buildings are doing. You can cycle through, see which ones are doing better than others. And that's a really quick and easy one. Say, right, how did we do last week? And it just comes out a bit like a credit score. It
Ah,
just
yes.
see it, right, okay, 60% this week, we need to do something about. It makes you want to jump into the data a bit more. It hooks you in rather than just being thrown information. It just says
Yeah.
nice high level, 60%. Oh, that's not great. We're usually hitting 90, 95. Click into that, and then you find out the areas that you're finding the inefficiencies and the energy waste.
Hmm.
Uh, so we found that's been really useful. We're really excited about that getting up and going. That's what I'm talking about with this constant development. I don't think we ever get to sit on and rest on our laurels. It's such a fast growing industry, and
Oh,
facilities
yeah.
management have now. I mean, we're the victims of our own success in this world. In that, before it was all talk about, oh, this could be a thing that's going to take over, and one day facilities managers are going to be talking about dynamic cleaning and dynamic heating, and now they all are, and now all of a sudden we're competing against other companies that have great offerings too. We're still the best, but but it's so
Yes.
competitive. Yeah, it's so competitive, and we need to constantly change it. If we're asking the facilities management industry to change, we have to be prepared to do that ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's been really great over the last year or two to get that kind of buy-in from across the industry. It's a bit of a confidence builder that you're onto the right track. That you do have all these competitors now. You're starting
Yeah.
to look across and see it wasn't just us. Loads of people are really finding a benefit and seeing this is the future, and it's not 20 or 30 years away. It's 2, 3, and we need to make sure we're one of the major players in that. So it's been fun in that way too. Stressful but fun.
Brilliant. It's really impressive. It's so modern. It's so simplified. That ease of use thing, as you say, the reports are just crystal clear to quickly dive in and make a tweak, make a change. It's amazing. But come on, Shane, it couldn't have been plain sailing all the way along. What's been the
So
bumps in the road? What's been the biggest challenge? Is it a technological one? Was it a software one? Was it trying to convince a certain client? What's in the background?
yeah, I guess we've been really lucky in that. Oh, we haven't been really lucky in general. I guess we've been pretty lucky, but really lucky with our software team.
Right.
They are absolutely fantastic. So as crazy as the ideas that we come out with, they end up being made, which is great. And then it's up to the clients to work out. Maybe that wasn't really the best way to go, but we've never been in a position that any wall was too high for software development, which has been really the key to everything. It's so easy to sit around and have conversations about what could be good and what you can say and what would be nice. But we had a team that was able to sit behind us and go like, right, okay, this is what we're doing this week. I'm sure they will have plenty more trials and tribulations to tell you than I do. Having to work with me for a start, but from our side of things, I guess there's still it's still one of those industries. It's probably the least sexy $1 trillion industry in the world is facilities management.
Yeah.
It's very tough to get that ball moving. Like I
Hmm.
said, it is moving now, which is great, but it's been hard as a startup to shift something so major. And a lot of these people are very knowledgeable and have been working the same way for decades. And I'm more than aware that coming into that and trying to tell people you need to change everything, or at least seeming that way, can
Mm.
be a bit of a standoffish conversation to start off with. But I think, luckily, I think over time we've been able to prove that we're not here to tell people that they're not doing things right or whatever. We're here to help.
Yeah.
That that has taken a long time. It's probably been about 2 or 3 years to be in a position where a lot of the facilities managers that I work with are now inviting me into the conversation rather than having our software introduced to them and kind of being pushed upon them. It's
Right.
more that we're having these conversations and saying, I know the struggles that the industry's having going. I know that, say, after we might have gotten away in the pandemic with maybe increasing our hours and things were good to a certain extent. Obviously, not great, but I mean, if cleaners have never been more respected than what they were over the pandemic period. You know, that they were able to be
Yeah.
like, oh well, we really do need to worry about how we maintain and clean a building. All of
Hmm.
a sudden, something that wasn't necessarily valued enough in pre-pandemic kind of period was all of a sudden right. Okay, we need to allocate resources towards cleaning, and that was great. But I think across the industry, they found that we're starting to clamp back down a bit again. They're starting to feel the pressure of
Mm.
a lot of people are having budgetary issues with
Yeah.
energy costs and everything to do with it. Also, the fact that buildings aren't being used as much, all
Yep.
of a sudden it's a lot more hurtful to some people in the accountancy side of things to say, oh, how much are we spending on maintaining these buildings that we know our
Yeah.
staff are working from home now, and the industry just needs to shift to meet that. And I guess going along that journey sounds like it should have been a pretty easy, obvious win for everybody. We could all just get around with each other, but it's hard fought. You have to really bring people along. So
Yeah.
it's been great. It's been great. I think we're into a very positive place when it comes to that. The conversations we're having are much easier now. People get
Mm.
we ended up winning an award there in the end of last year, or the end of this year, sorry. That was a European-wide cleaning award, and I guess that was kind of
Oh, wow.
um, that was a massive piece of just okay, we can't be that far off the
Yeah.
we won a European award, European wide award for smart solutions in cleaning, and to me that was validation. And I think that sometimes you're fighting all the time with people to try and show right we need to change.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the big things now that we're having is the struggle to get that shift happening. I think a lot of people are a little bit burnt out with sustainability.
Mm.
I think it's a very important piece, but I think with the amount of, I guess, mostly greenwashing, essentially, it's something that somebody in the marketing team says, yeah, we're really focused on this now, and but from an operations perspective, it just feels like somebody's making videos and nice videos, and this is how we're changing, and um, but you never see anything really happening that makes a difference. You just see budgets going down and down. And
Mm.
I think that's one of the bits that we have seen as a challenge in the last year is trying to get the ball moving for what we feel is a real change. So not pie in the sky. Let's use sensors to work out how we can use sunlight to grow trees or whatever it is that we need to say on a marketing spiel, but actually just real world. I think everybody gets the concept again. It's that kind of why isn't this already happening?
Yeah.
Nobody complains whenever we turn off the heating in places that nobody's in. It hasn't happened yet. um, so I guess it's about getting the momentum behind that and having to start again in that world of just right. This is what feels like a very obvious answer and needs to do the same thing again. Where it's this massive change in the way that people operate a BMS. It's a big shift in that world, and it's about re-energizing again and saying, right, bring the software guys along with it as well because they've been through so much with me. But this is just we're at it again, where it's just the same sensors are going to make so much of a difference in this world, and getting people into that conversation about sustainability sometimes has a bit of an edge about it because I'm sure there have been plenty of other companies that have come in and said that they were going to do X and did Y instead, which Y again was a marketing video probably, but
Yeah, exactly.
so that's it, but I'm thankful to say that the rewards far outweigh the challenges 99% of the time. But it's a good place to be.
No, definitely. And the last question, let's look into the future. What's the plans here? Are we talking world domination? Do we want your
Yeah,
sensors on every bit of property there is? Is there a well, I wish one of our sensors was able to capture such and such, or I wish our software would be able to show such and such. Is there anything in your head for the future?
absolutely. I think the main two pieces that I've been talking with the software guys, and this is coming from them as much as it is from me.
Hmm.
We got together and kind of talked about where we want to go in the future, and we've been saying that for the last few months about what this plan is in 2024. And
Hmm.
I guess we're going out and getting more funding to help with this as well. But in the next year, what we want to do is for the heating side of things, where it's such an obvious answer, it's not the same as the human element of facilities management, where it's like helping the operations managers clean the areas that need cleaned, and there's a person there to get information into their hands.
Mm.
For what we're doing with this new, essentially a new metric, which is this wasted heat, like the unoccupied heat,
Hmm.
we want to not need to put that report into somebody's hand, but they actually action it. That's what we need to be doing, and that's where we're developing. It's that direct integration with the building management system. That's
Oh,
where we're
wow.
really focused on for the start of the year. So, yes, we can give you a nice little report to say this is how much time and wasted energy we've saved you, but the actual action should be automatic. It should be just like our sensors. It's just a sensor tells that a room is not being used,
Mm.
and the software itself goes into the building and switches off the heating in that room, and
Oh,
that's where the real
wow.
focus is. But the second part of that is related, and it's interesting for our software guys, is they want to use artificial intelligence for a lot of the reports that we're doing. So a
Right.
lot of the reports, it is computer based in that it's not just manually making these reports, but a lot of the time the interesting insights can be found with artificial intelligence. Running through all the
Yeah.
reports we have and really just highlighting the interesting pieces that can give you that dashboard as you come in, and just, oh, did the light was left on yesterday in room 107.
Yeah.
That piece is a real, AI is thrown around quite a lot as the pieces of software are going to be using AI or whatever.
Yeah.
But this is a real use case for us that we've talked about, that it's just going to be a very simple piece where we're integrating our data with AI to find these insights. We already do have, we have these reports, but just that piece that says, okay, AI, let's work with you to get what people find the most interesting, what's the most interesting thing from last week, most interesting thing from last month, get
Mm.
those insights right into the front of people's that dashboard comes up. So you've got automation happening when it comes to the heating, and AI bringing more of this kind of interest in user experience. That's where it's going for 2024. So
Brilliant.
exciting again, and eventually I'm sure at some point in 10 years it'll be all quite calm, but we're usually on something pretty intense.
Fantastic. It's brilliant. And yeah, the AI element, it's a no-brainer. It's exactly where you have to go. What I'm wondering, actually, I'm worried about your poor developers. I think we
Yeah,
need a lot of sensors round about your developers because I think they're getting overworked. I think the occupancy is
absolutely.
going to be through the roof.
Yeah, no, that's it. And the temperature, I'm sure, in the rooms is somewhere.
There's no sensor for swearing or anything, is there?
No,
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 that's
no,
it. Thank
no.
God. Yeah, we know we could do it, but we don't want to. We
No,
don't
we
want
don't want
to.
to.
No, we
Uh,
have. I think that's the bit that gives me the most confidence. Is the idea was fantastic. The guys getting together, that was a really amazing thing for me to step into.
yeah.
But the other piece was that I managed to also bump into these people that came along, and they just work magic in a sense. That there's guys that I've met that are coming up with great ideas, and then other guys that I'm able to talk to that make ideas turn into reality. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, 3 months afterwards, you're sitting on the site that you were talking about. Oh, maybe one day we could, and there we are. I'm sure it will be the same thing when we're talking this time next year. And I said, oh yeah, just throwing around. Yeah, we'll be using AI, and we'll be automatically changing buildings. And somehow in 12 months' time, I get to say, oh yeah, I got to stand up and get an award at some point because we used AI to change buildings. And the unsung heroes sit in the background, just temperature going higher and higher.
Oh, bro. Well, at least you've given the credit today. That's a good thing. They
Yeah,
can appreciate
absolutely.
that. Brilliant stuff. Well, it's really impressive technology. It really is. For the folks listening, watching, do what I said. Go into the show notes, click onto the links. You'll see some cracking videos, just explaining the sensors, explaining the reporting parts. But there's also a little section on the site where you can request a demo as well. So if you want to step forward with it and actually play about with a little demonstration value, then that's something to do with the guys as well. But for today, Mr. Shane Brady from SmartWorkPlus, thanks a million for being on This Week in Property.
Thanks, Richard.